The call came at 11:48 p.m., when the city was already half asleep and his apartment felt too quiet for a weekday. He almost didn't answer. Unknown number. Late hour. Nothing good ever arrived that way. But something made him pick up, a small pull he couldn't explain. The voice on the other end hesitated before speaking, as if deciding whether to exist. She said his name carefully, testing it. They hadn't spoken in years. Not since life split in two directions that both felt necessary at the time. He recognized her immediately, not by the sound of her voice, but by the pause between words, the way she always thought before saying anything important. She apologized for calling so late. He said it was fine. Neither mentioned the time that had passed. Some things don't need an introduction when they return. They talked about ordinary things first. Work. The city. How strange it felt to hear a familiar voice in a life that had become unfamiliar. Then the conversation slowed, deepened, drifting toward what had never been said. She admitted she'd almost called many times before and stopped herself every time. He confessed he'd deleted her number more than once and always memorized it again. There was no accusation in the air, only honesty that arrived late but intact. They talked about why things ended, not dramatically, but truthfully. Fear of staying. Fear of choosing. Fear of becoming someone neither of them was ready to be back then. Hearing it now, with distance and maturity, softened the sharp edges of memory. At one point, silence stretched between them. Not awkward. Heavy. Full. She said she didn't call to go back. She called because she wanted to know if what they'd had mattered as much to him as it had to her. He answered without hesitation. It had. It still did, in the quiet way old truths do. They didn't make plans. They didn't reopen doors. They said goodnight and meant it. When the call ended, the apartment felt different, not louder, not emptier, just more honest. Like something unfinished had finally found its ending. Later, lying in the dark, he realized the call hadn't been too late after all. It had arrived exactly when it could be understood. Some connections aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to resurface once, long enough to remind you who you were and how far you've come since then. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Not because of regret, but because memory has its own gravity. He lay there replaying fragments, her laugh cutting through static, the way she softened his name at the end of a sentence, the calm certainty in her voice when she said she didn't want to go back. It felt strange how much peace that brought him. Closure, he realized, wasn't about reopening doors. It was about finally closing them without slamming. The next day moved slowly. Coffee tasted stronger than usual. Conversations felt sharper, more present. He noticed how often he'd rushed through moments before, how rarely he paused to feel where he actually was. The call had shifted something subtle, like adjusting a picture frame that had been crooked for years. Nothing changed. Everything aligned. A few days later, he found an old notebook while cleaning a drawer. Inside were half-finished thoughts, plans that never happened, names that no longer belonged to his life. He didn't throw it away. He read it once, carefully, then closed it and put it back, not as an anchor, but as a marker. Proof that he had lived through different versions of himself and kept going. They didn't speak again. That, too, felt right. Some conversations are meant to be singular, not serialized. He carried her voice with him occasionally, not as longing, but as context. It reminded him to choose presence over avoidance, honesty over convenience. To say things when they mattered, not when it was already too late. Weeks passed. Life resumed its normal tempo. But when his phone rang late one evening, another unknown number, he didn't flinch. He answered calmly, ready for whatever the voice on the other end might carry. Not because he expected the past to return, but because he had learned something important. Timing doesn't always mean opportunity. Sometimes it means understanding. And once understanding arrives, you don't chase echoes. You move forward, lighter, clearer, and finally finished with the silence.